Hello and welcome to this month's Fire Chief's video message for July 2019. Luckily right now, it's a little bit cool. We've gotten a little break in that oppressive heat wave. It's not going to be above 90 degrees or heat indexes in the hundreds like it has been for the good past week. But there's no doubt we're in our summer heat waves, and it's been quite a challenge, as we will talk about today. Today's discussion, today's topic for the month is about thanks. There's a great opportunity to recognize what the men and women of the department do. We get notes about that all the time, and Pete's joining me today, and we're going to talk about some of those events and talk about how we have had the opportunity to give back to the community, as well as how some of our services and some of our activities have been recognized by folks within the community. So we're talking about thanks this month.
So we have Christmas in April, we have Thanksgiving in July.
Right.
But you mentioned it, Chief, we get feedback all the time about the good job everybody does, and certainly it's, you know, they do that every day, but we've been especially challenged lately. And I don't know if that storm we had on July 8th was unprecedented, but certainly it was challenging, but it didn't seem like it because we handled it pretty well, I thought. Great response.
And as you talk about July 8th, that Monday morning, you know, they forecasted some storms, and they forecasted locally heavy downpours. And as this map shows, the clustering of nearly 40 dots on the map predominantly carries west of 270, and it stayed west of 270 through the Germantown, Darnestown, Potomac, into Cabin John, Carter Rock, area. And that map in upon itself highlights, as it then carried down into Arlington, Alexandria, DC, and into Fort Washington, it clearly made a direct impact in a part of the county. That time frame, that 6 hours that morning, was almost equivalent to an entire 24 hours worth of calls. Close to 300 calls in just that time frame from about 6 a.m. until noon. And there was 37 unique water rescue incidences dispatched during that time frame, and the numbers account for 28 rescues made, some of which with the Battalion 2 dash cam and other videos that we have show the work done by operations crews and swift water crews at the same time, where rescues were made and people were extracted from cars that ultimately became submerged in total, floated further downstream, and where the men and women made an absolute difference. And there's no doubt that the inland flooding, these incidents occurred in areas that you don't traditionally know as target hazards. They're not on our target hazard list for the most part. And we were going to residential streets for flooding incidences. And that volume of calls, that speed of time, it was somewhere near 5 inches of rain that fell in such a short period of time in that focused area, was a challenge and clearly made for a busy morning. One opportunity that I wanted to share with everybody is this card here that CAO Andrew Klein sent to the men and women of the department. And as you see on the screen, it's a quick note saying thanks for the remarkable work that we did on that morning. Mother Nature gave you a big challenge and you were up to it. And that goes out to everybody as part of the department. We had units that were, 1st Battalion units running calls well deep into the 2nd Battalion, and rescues being made by all. So that event that day, as with the storms just the other night in the Germantown, Up County, Clarksburg area, Damascus, proved the dynamic nature of what we're facing and experiencing, and it's getting worse, or they're getting more challenging year after year. So it's about the basics, having the skills, having the resources, having training, and being ready for those opportunities.
Well, and there certainly were some unique challenges that day. Certainly we were sending units to one location, they would come across another, and as you said, they were up to the challenge. One thing of note, you mentioned the Battalion 2 vehicle. They were down along Canal Road, Clara Barton Parkway, but the bridge, the ramp that comes off the Beltway, There's a cabin, John Creek, I believe, is there. But the bridge, the overpass has clearance 14 feet. Well, the water was 1 foot below that. So that creek had risen up, flooded that road. And I think if you saw the footage from the battalion chief's vehicle, the water rose very quickly. So there were challenges countywide for sure, but as you said, mostly in that area west of 270.
Absolutely, and we don't know what's going to happen today. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or the next storm, weather event, or man-made event. So it's what we come to work, come to our standby, and don't know when that bell rings and what it'll be. So in between calls, we've had a few opportunities to engage with the community, as well as give back and appreciation to the community. And one of those events was back in the middle of June, where Montgomery County Fire Rescue and the Friends of the Human Rights Commission were able to honor Human Rights Director Jim Stowe.
Yep.
For his 10 years of leading the civil rights educational freedom experience. And Jim has been a partner with me, with Fire Rescue, on many different things, and it was a great opportunity for us, Fire Rescue, as well as folks from County Council, Annapolis delegation, and county executive staff, to honor Jim and what he does. This event was emceed by Bishop Paul Walker and attended by several others from the Faith Leaders Group, including Reverend Mansfield Caseman and Dr. Carol Flint. And it was an opportunity to give back to Jim and highlight the community leader that he is, the steadfast advocate for the support and interactions of all parties within the community. And I want to highlight some comments that Reverend Caseman wrote back together. His words were, "It was a great time being together when we were impacted daily with both political and racial rhetoric, policies, and actions. You deepened our sense of solidarity, and the best of all, uplifted a great leader in Jim Stowe. Jim carries his credentials lightly and typically is the one recognizing others for their activities in their service. It was high time the tables were turned, and you and your fire rescue team did that extremely well. You embraced the elected and political officials along with the Friends of the Human Rights Commission, and highlighted how the community members remind us of the impact and the interdependency. One of the highlights of that event was a letter written by a member of MCFRS, and it demonstrated, and in Casey's words, the consciousness that this member has, and how the experience and interactions with different parts of our community have grown and are preparing our men and women to be the advocates for the community, because it's exactly what we're doing. When we go to that resident's call, we're there as their sister, there as their provider and supporter. And Casey's last words were, MCFRS is made up of remarkable members with great insight and emotional intelligence and leadership skills. And that was very flattering as Casey was talking about this one member, as well as MCFRS's membership as a whole. And that event held at headquarters in the terrace level meeting space was a great opportunity to support Jim and what he has done and continues to do for Montgomery County Fire Rescue, for the folks within human rights, as well as throughout Montgomery County and the greater country and community.
Well, I know under your leadership, you certainly have engaged our folks, our EEO folks and others, and we have been standing shoulder to shoulder with Jim Stowe for years. And we do a lot of behind the scenes, so kudos to you as well. But Jim certainly deserves all that recognition, but our folks certainly We don't probably give it too much of a second thought how diverse our community is, but we are out in the community every day, emergency responses, but also I think our community engagement, community reduction folks do a great job, and a lot of that is because of the connections and partnerships that Jim Stowe has bestowed.
Absolutely, and the friendship, the fellowship picnic is the September event that is held as a cooperative activity with multiple county government agencies, Wheaton Regional Park, and it is absolutely that blending together of so many parts of the community into an event for dialogue, interactions, and interrelations. And that's one of the things that community engagement is paramount about. And
probably the best thing about that is there's pretty tasty food there as well.
Definitely good
variety,
food,
good variety.
Good opportunity for music as well.
Yeah.
And Wheaton Regional Park is a great venue for both young and heart to engage at. We were at an event just this past weekend. Washington Spirit recognized first responders, police, fire rescue folks on their game Saturday night.
Washington Spirit, of course, being the women's soccer
team, and it was their first game back from the World Cup activities. So there was a good group of folks from both police and fire there, doing some recruiting, doing outreach, education, engagement. We did also some on-field giveaways at halftime and shall we say, fan engagement and fan.
I think it was a sellout, or close to a sellout.
It was definitely packed.
Great night. If you haven't been out to the Soccerplex for one of those games, certainly take advantage of that. It's a great time.
And transitioning about an engagement is we're in the summer. We got kids going to summer camps and different summer activities in between. That September and June school year period of time, and we're supporting a summer camp. In a sense, with the Montgomery County Public Schools Summer Rise program. It's the third year of Summer Rise. Summer, really interesting summer experiences.
Yeah, Rise, really interesting summer experiences.
Exactly. And using the description right out of MCPS's partnership unit, it's a collaboration between local businesses and governments where this 3-week, 60-hour program gets juniors and seniors the opportunity to participate in career-based learning opportunities. And it's our third year. We've been involved with the RISE program from the beginning, where we get to teach these folks, and there's just shy of 30 folks in this year's group, about the organization or about the opportunities for careers in fire rescue. And that's being done with a pretty broad capability. Is they've been at the training academy, they've been at ECC, they've been at FROMS, they've been at special operations facilities. They went to Annapolis for the Fallen Firefighters Memorial to identify and understand their sacrifices. They did job interviewing and application exercises so that they were experienced in that. They did risk reduction interactions. And this week, they're actually engaged Monday, Tuesday, Thursday this week in ride-alongs at different stations. So you see them out there with their red shirts. And then this is the end of the week on Friday with their graduation. And one of the great things I want to highlight is part of the RISE opportunity is also a partnership that has been ongoing. And just last week, Dante from Dante's Boxing Gym was able to engage with the RISE group and demonstrate how the physical fitness requirements of this profession are quite demanding, and how that can be tackled as well as conditioned in many different ways. Boxing being an all-around style of body and physical fitness. So Dante had them at the gym on Redland Road last week, giving them a practical example and a very complex workout to show how the physical demands to a public safety job and personal health, because that's definitely a personal decision that each of the students, each member of our organization has to be committed to. But a great reach out and thank you to Dante for his support, because he supports the recruit classes as well, and get them the differences and a change from yoga to endurance to cardio to boxing and such.
And I saw the RISE students got quite a little workout. They most of them had a sweat going there, so that was good.
No doubt.
Good
So
workout for sure.
It's a great opportunity, and we have folks from the first year RISE program that are still high school students or just finished high school, but are volunteering, with different LFRDs within the county, and that's just a great example of, like the cadet program, as a stepping stone into the volunteer ranks or the career ranks. Summer Rise has exposed these folks to fire rescue, emergency medical, public safety, and they're continuing on with that. So it's a great opportunity to do that.
And I think as these kids go around to the stations and visit with us, if we engage in conversation, the few I've talked to, I've been very impressed with where they are as students and their life's experiences, and I think that's somewhat typical of our Montgomery County students, but this group is very interesting. So take advantage of the opportunity if they're out in the station, get in conversation with them, and I think it'd be good for everybody.
Right, because we're exposing them to the broad ranges of fire rescue. We call it STEM, and science, technology, and engineering, and math. But the fact that somebody doesn't realize hazmat, doesn't realize bomb squad, doesn't realize instructional teaching, all of those are opportunities within, fire rescue and a public safety organization like ourselves, but it's not in the traditional name. But those are specialized skills to be a proficient hazmat or proficient swift water rescue person. It's understanding, that hydraulics as well as the force of nature. And those are opportunities where someone who may be interested in science or engineering can clearly see how that fits into a fire rescue career path.
Yeah, there might be
exposure there.
Might even be a PIO or two out there.
There could be. You may be worried.
Yeah, I am.
So, as we talk about engineering, I wanted to segue into adaptive engineering and how a crew recently overcame a challenge to help a patient. Company 1, Captain Branch's shift ran a diabetic patient, needed to be transported to the hospital. The patient was in a specialized motorized wheelchair. The transport necessitated, transitioning to the cot, transported to the local hospital. But now this motorized wheelchair, which is a very dependent piece of equipment for that patient, is on the scene.
And it's big and heavy.
No doubt. And how do you manage to adjust to that? So Eddie reached out, got a couple suggestions from some folks, and with the tools we have, specifically in this case, the bariatric ramps, the winch, the capabilities we have on a good number of our EMS units, it was suggested. They called Rescue Company 1. They came over, got another EMS unit over, and as these pictures outline, the ramps were connected, the winch was engaged to the wheelchair. We winched the wheelchair up into the back of the unit, and were able to transfer the wheelchair to the hospital as well, so that when the patient was released, they had their core piece of life support equipment, their wheelchair, present at the hospital. And that's great customer service. That is thinking outside of the box and figuring out how to keep the equipment safe, how to match it back up with the patient, and using the tools that we have in our toolbox. And great work by the folks involved and by Captain Branch for doing that, and great kudos go out to him. But as I said, that is a perfect example of what happens all the time. Stories time and time again of somebody taking groceries home, or making sure that private and personal belongings in a car that may be perishable are taken care of when the person needs to be transported to the hospital. Yeah. Those stories happen all the time, and that's exactly what the folks are doing. That's exactly what we would want to happen if that was our loved one in the opposite situation. So again, the thanks are always out there, and the folks get thanked when someone stops by the station and says thanks, and it's that great smile that happens to come across someone's face when they see the kindness and caring that comes across. But thanks to everybody for those great services.
Yep. And if you think about it, in this particular case, the patient got the medical care, and we expect that, but it was just a peace of mind that we were able to, and comfort, for that patient to have their wheelchair there, which is they're very dependent on. And
Absolutely.
as you said, that happens quite often in other cases and situations.
Right.
Great work.
And then about thanks, we're public safety professionals. We're always on duty, be it on shift or off shift. We're always, attentive to watching and looking at things. Call last week in the morning, was a perfect example of that. Right behind company 24. Yep. Start that story.
Yeah. So Stanley Lane, early in the morning, 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the morning. In this particular case, Sergeant Brooks, Mike Brooks, was on the way, a patrol sergeant with the police department.
Scott Brooks.
Scott Brooks, yeah. What did I say, Mike?
You said Mike.
I know Mike Brooks. Scott, sergeant, was on his way to work, coming down New Hampshire Avenue in Colesville, saw some smoke. He was about Randolph Road, and as he came by the firehouse, he noticed all the fire trucks were there, so he figured it was some construction work or something like that. But as he went a block or two past the firehouse, he looked over, saw a house on fire. Of course, called it in, went there, figuring people were still there, cars in the driveway, time of day. Once he radioed for help, he proceeded to the house and eventually would kick the door down and assist some people out. While all that was going on, Lieutenant Owens, Wes Owens, was on the way, same route of travel down New Hampshire Avenue. Same thing, he saw the fire trucks were in the station, but he was able to get there just as Sergeant Brooks was pulling somebody out, taking a deep breath and going back in. Now, the heavy fire conditions, very heavy smoke conditions. Wes, or Lieutenant Owens, called 911, was given some play-by-play, people were trapped and so forth, and then he proceeded to assist Sergeant Brooks with getting the adult male out. So their combined effort probably saved some lives that day, and just as that was occurring, they got the people out. Of course, fire rescue got there. Now we know the rest of the story. A pretty significant fire.
Right.
Probably electrical in nature, started on the outside. But no serious injuries, and both those guys ended up just getting back in their cars and going to work.
Yeah, absolutely. It was observed situation, recognized the risk that was present, engaged to rescue the occupants. As we know, the Sergeant Brooks has been reunited with the man and the husband and wife from the house, and there's no doubt that the camaraderie or the banter between police and fire is, without the benefit of a hose line and an SCBA, well, without the benefit of protective equipment, without the benefit of the tools that we call norm and put us into those environments and enable us to take those risks. Wes and Scott took the extra effort to engage with and assist the family members out of the structure. So top-notch work and great job, well done.
Yep, a couple lives saved for sure.
Absolutely, and that's just another example of the daily things that are ongoing, and everybody does. So.
And that event and others that we've had, certainly you mentioned early on about the heat wave. It's been challenging for weeks, maybe going on a month now with the extreme hot weather, and obviously we've had some fires, but just normal events and responses are challenging with the weather that we've had lately. So we're just in the middle of the summer right now. I'm sure we'll have another heat wave or two as we head into August, but certainly I've been watching everybody, and as you have been on the scene a couple times, but extremely challenging, and again, great work, Thanksgiving in July.
And tragically, just this past weekend, we had, a remarkable event on the Billy Goat Trail, and an event that is one of the most complex that I can recall in that environment. We go there one, 2, 3 times a weekend, meaning the Great Falls area for incidents, water-based or land-based.
Yep.
So that's not uncommon, but the The mobility issues related to the Billy Goat Trail are extremely challenging. Combined with the 105 plus 100 degrees heat index that we had on Saturday, and to have the most critical of critical, 9 Echo, a working code on the Billy Goat Trail, the work done by ECC to get location pinpointed, the work by the crews from Company 10 and 30 to get there, get to patient's side, bystander CPR was in place, crew fire rescue engagement transition. We've for many decades now had that partnership with the U.S. Park Police Eagle helicopter, and we go down to Anacostia and the Eagle's Nest every year to do specifically preparedness for this, hoist operations with the Eagle, and at times hoisting the patient straight from the trail is the patient's best option. And in this case, that was the selected path: hoist the patient as well as another provider into the aircraft, and a direct and immediate transport to the hospital, in this case Suburban. Tragically, the patient's outcome was unfavorable, and she had perished. But those folks working that day gave 1,050% on that call, and taxed themselves and caused them physical injury as well as an impact, but they were doing the highest level of care possible for that day.
Yeah, and Chief, I was on the scene that day, and it was 100 degrees in the shade. And also, not only did we have the patient that had suffered the medical emergency, but there were about a dozen others that our crews noticed were having some heat exhaustion issues in and around the Billy Goat Trail, so we ended up treating and transporting a few more people. But
exactly.
Just within a couple of days, we've had a couple of unique incidents. We had that. We had a technical rescue and critical injury over in Fairfax, Scott's Run, where we responded to and assisted there. Another helicopter evacuation. We had a guy stuck in the mud a couple days ago. So that area is challenging. Our response is good. And I will say on that medical emergency, within 30 minutes, that person was at the hospital, and that is just nothing short of impressive when you think that they are a mile or two in on the Billy Goat Trail, very rough terrain. 911 people come to the aid. Pre-arrival instructions. We arrive on the scene, package the patient, treat the patient, get to the hospital within 30 minutes. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely great work. And again, it comes from training and teamwork.
Yep.
And there's no doubt that I recognize we've said the water, the falls, the gorge is one of the most dangerous, if not the most dangerous thing we do in MCFRS. And operations there are time dependent and very critical. So another example of great work. And
sure.
I've said it here before. I'm going to say it here again as we roll into the end of this video. We talk about the dog days of summer, heat, humidity. We talk about hydration. We talk about being ready for your work day, your standby, your duty night, whatever the day or event is. And with those level of heat in that situation, preparedness starts before you actually walk into the fire station. It starts the day before, the night before. And that's about hydration and being physically ready, physically fit, as well as being prepared for the taxing demands of the heat situation. So thank you to everybody within the department for everything that you're doing. Some of these examples are highlighting that, but again, every day you all are making a difference. As we go through, we will have more hot days in August. Be ready. Try to adjust to that, adjust your routines, keep hydrated, keep prepared for that. Next month, we're going to talk about some new faces within MCFRS. We've gotten a lot of new folks have joined us in the last couple of weeks. Want to highlight that. We did a little bit of an organizational change with July 1st and community risk reduction back to fire chief's office and some adjustments there. So stay tuned until next month's video. Take care. Be safe.